Welcome back to Essential Cocktails, everybody. Today I'm going to show you how to make one of the most popular cocktails in the world, which is a whiskey sour. Okay, so the whiskey sour dates back to around about the mid to late 1800s, and it's such a delicious drink, and I think this is a perfect gateway into the world of whiskey. So if you're not a massive whiskey fan, which is completely fine for now, give this drink a try, and I guarantee you'll find a way to really start enjoying whiskey. And once you're down the rabbit hole, you'll never look back. The world of whiskey is an incredible world, so there's lots of different flavors to explore, and I'm pretty confident you just haven't found the right whiskey for you just yet. This is a really good way to find it. So to make a whiskey sour, essentially we kind of build in a box around the whiskey to elevate it, bring it to the forefront, but also add some kind of sweetness, acidity and bitterness and a little bit of creaminess, just making it a little bit more approachable for people. So in order to do this, we need to start with a whiskey, of course, and you can use any whiskey for this. I like to use a bourbon, which is kind of a traditional way to do things, but you could go with a rye, which would be a little bit more spicy. You could use a Scotch whiskey for a Scotch sour. You could use any international whiskey, which will bring different flavor characteristics. But let's keep things traditional for now. We'll go with Buffalo Trace as our kind of foundational whiskey sour ingredient. To bring our sour element to the drink, which makes it a whiskey sour, we're gonna go with lemon juice. And this ideally wants to be freshly squeezed. And we're gonna balance this with a little bit of a 2-to-1 Morning cane sugar syrup. So you can use, again, any sugar for this, it will just change the characteristic of the drink, but we're gonna keep things kind of traditional here. So we've got whiskey, we've got sourness, we've got sweetness. We're gonna add some bitterness in the form of aromatic bitters. I'm going with scrappies, but you can explore with different bitters here. And we want that really nice kind of creamy, foamy texture that you've had in a whiskey sour before. And there's two ways to do this. There are probably more, but two primary ways. So the first of which being to use aquafaba, which is essentially the water from inside a can of chickpeas. And if you can avoid using the salted water, that makes a massive difference. And although this sounds a little bit strange, don't be put off by this. You don't taste chickpea in the final drink at all. It just brings that really nice kind of foamy texture. But if you want to go for a more traditional route, you can use an egg white, which works beautifully well, but obviously not everyone eats eggs. So I'm going to go with the plant-based alternative, which is aquafaba. So because we want a really nice foamy texture, and we're using citrus in here, we're going to shake the drink. And you could even actually incorporate a second shake into this, a dry shake, as we saw in our double shaken video, which I'll link above. But because I'm using ice that's straight out of the freezer, you actually don't need to necessarily do this. You can give it a really good hard shake to get that really nice emulsified texture. So a whiskey sour starts with whiskey. And we want a fairly handsome pour of this. So I'm going with 60 mils. We're gonna go 30 mils of our freshly squeezed lemon juice, and then 15 mils of our 2-to-1 Morning sugar syrup. And that 4 to 2 to 1 ratio of spirit to sour to sweet is a really popular ratio that a lot of people enjoy. But as with anything, you can adjust this. You can add more sweetness, less sweetness, more sourness, less sourness, more spirit, less spirit, and find the ratio that works for you. We're gonna go with 2 to 3 dashes of bitters. But again, if you prefer it a little bit more bitter, go for a touch more. And then 15 mils of our chickpea water, which is called aquafaba. And you don't need a huge amount of this to kind of bring that really nice texture. We don't want to add any chickpea flavor, which it really doesn't do anyway. But if you went too high, it'd be unnecessary. It'd almost be too foamy. And this is the perfect amount for this drink. Gonna give this a really good hard shake over lots of ice to really whip things up and get that nice texture. Gonna fine strain into a chilled glass with lots of ice. We're just gonna finish off the drink with a nice slice of lemon. And the reason for this is twofold. It adds a really nice contrast of color to the cherry, but it also gives people the option to add a little bit more acidity to the drink if they prefer. Just gonna skewer the lemon wedge. Skewer the cherry, avoiding the stone. And there we have a delicious whiskey sour. Cheers, everybody.